In the vast cases of near-death experiences we know of, some stories stand out not only for their intensity, but also for the unusual landscape that surrounds them in a positive scenario. Imagine yourself not in a heavenly setting, but rather in a dark and frightening place, where the line between life and death fades amidst the darkness. It is in this dark territory that we will delve into today, through the striking account of a Brazilian man named Enio, who experienced a near-death experience like no other. While many describe visions of peace, light, and serenity in their NDEs, this man was dragged to a place where horror and the unknown reign supreme. Now, let's move on to part 1 of Enio's NDE.
Well, my name is Enio. I'm 51 years old and I live in Florianopolis, Brazil. In 2014, I suffered a stroke that paralyzed my left side and affected my voice, face, arm, and leg, besides providing me with a striking experience that changed my life. I was a completely different person back then. I thought differently and always believed in God since childhood, although I don't follow any religion. However, I went through an experience I never imagined facing. In 2014, while I was at college on a Saturday morning, I started feeling unwell. I experienced intense sweating, my face was covered in sweat, and I lost the ability to speak, becoming pale. Then, I passed out. Upon regaining consciousness, I found myself in an unknown place, initially seeming like a dream. I was confused, but soon realized I didn't know where I was. It scared me deeply. I desperately tried to understand what was happening and how to get out of there. The environment was different, with low vegetation around, perhaps grass. As I looked around, I felt fear and thought I might have been kidnapped. I decided to walk to try to find my house or the town. However, even after a long time, it felt like I wasn't making any progress. I started running, but the fear increased, although I didn't feel tired or hungry. At some point, I knelt down and prayed, crying. I had no idea where I was, but I knew I wasn't dead. Everything was very real. Then I curled up like a child, feeling vulnerable and scared. After some time, I got up and continued walking, spending the night amidst constant fear. There were no trees or animals around, just dense vegetation, heightening my terror. As the day broke, I spotted something in the distance, maybe people, and ran towards them in search of help. Around 500 meters or more, I spotted some people on the ground. They were mutilated, without arms, without legs, some more severely injured than others, all around. They were screaming, murmuring, asking for help, pleading for assistance, and various other similar things. Witnessing this scene, I felt my world collapsing and my fear intensifying even more. It was such an intense fear that it felt like my bones were hurting, although I didn't feel pain in that place. That sight deeply affected me as I approached. People were screaming, murmuring, suffering. It seemed like a scene from a horror movie. At one point, I even thought I was dead. The people there weren't whole like me. They were mutilated and in a state of decomposition, emitting a strong odor of decay. This made me realize that they wouldn't scream or speak, so I ran away from there as fast as I could, completely terrified. That experience still haunts me to this day. I don't like to think about it, but it deeply affected me. I kept running, seeing thousands of people on the ground, all crying for help, calling out for family members, screaming for assistance. I ran and walked until I started climbing a hill, and the people decreased a bit. I was terrified, not knowing what to do, where I was. There's no explanation for it. I can't express how real the situation was at that moment. As for what happened afterward, I sought help and was desperate to get out of there. I walked a lot, but the story is long. I had already been walking for about 18 hours or more before seeing those mutilated people. I had a sense of time passing, although I didn't have a watch. And I also noticed the alternation between day and night. As for my bodily sensation, I felt my body, touched the ground as I ran, and felt the weight of my body. Despite this, I didn't feel tired or hungry, just a constant trembling. And the smell, yes, was different, a stench of decay that didn't resemble anything. I had ever smelled. This experience is something I wouldn't wish on anyone, and it's difficult to express how much it affected me.
This was part 1 of Enio's experience. Subscribe to our channel to watch part 2 and discover the conclusion of this terrible NDE.